Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Commander Lee Pritchard. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony around Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, St Patrick's Primary School, Swansea, St Peter's Primary School, Stockton, and St Kevin's Primary School, Cardiff. From Queensland, Stanwell State School and Westwood State School. From South Australia, Marriotteville Primary School. From Tasmania, St Peter Chanel Primary School, Smithton. And from Victoria, Bright Primary to 12 College, Primary Department, Victoria. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Please sit, boys and girls. The Australian War Memorial was a vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Andrew Edward Staggs. Andrew Staggs was born in 1888 to John and Jemima Staggs of Inverell. He was the eldest of 7 sons and 2 daughters born to the couple. John Staggs was a farmer, and Andrew would eventually follow in his footsteps. The family first lived in Mossvale before moving to the Richmond River during the early days of its dairy industry. While on the Richmond River, Staggs had an accident that left him with a head wound and 2 missing fingers, and he reportedly suffered a peculiar manner as a result. In 1908, the family moved to Inverell, where his father worked a property known as Rose Hill. In April 1914, Staggs was found guilty of larceny over a borrowed mowing machine and was heavily fined. 4 months later, war broke out in Europe, and he was among the first to enlist. Andrew and his brother Fred enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 27th of August 1914. Despite his missing fingers, Stagg was accepted for active service and was posted to the 1st Battalion. The brothers underwent a short period of training before being sent overseas, where they continued training in Egypt. On the 25th of April 1915, the 1st Battalion landed on Gallipoli, forming parts of the 2nd and 3rd waves of the landing force. Andrew and Fred survived the hectic first days after the landing as the Australians struggled to establish a line and organise their battalions. On the 19th of May 1915, the brothers stood talking to each other when the Turks attacked. Andrew was shot through the neck and was told to go down to the beach to have his wound dressed. He refused, however, and stayed in the front line, helping carry ammunition to the men in the front line. As he worked, he was hit again. His brother later wrote, "Thank God he never suffered. The end came very quickly. Nobody can say he was anything but brave." Private Andrew Staggs was buried near where he died, but his grave was later lost. Today he is commemorated on the Lone Pine Memorial on the Gallipoli Peninsula. He was 28 years old. Fred Staggs was repatriated to Australia the following year. He enlisted for service during the Second World War and died as a prisoner of the Japanese in Borneo in 1945. The names of Andrew and Fred Staggs are listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died during the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Andrew Edward Staggs, his brother Corporal Fred Staggs, who gave their lives for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and good evening.